Good day, everyone. This is the review to the topic cells on biology, and we're going to be looking at question 1 first, right? So we can see that our question is, which of the following statement about the protoplasm of a cell is not correct? So we are going to be checking our options to see which of these is not consistent with the question. So A says consists of cytoplasm and nucleus, and this is actually the definition of the protoplasm. It consists of the cytoplasm and the nucleus. Let's go to option C. Option C says it contains cellular organelles, and we know that the cytoplasm, which is confirmed to be in the nucleus, right? So the cytoplasm contains cellular organelles, and if the cytoplasm is part of the protoplasm, therefore it contains cellular organelles. Is a gelatinous mass. Remember, the cytoplasm also is a gelatinous mass, so therefore it's going to be gelatinous. So the answer will be B, is the liquid part of the nucleus, because the protoplasm consists of both the cytoplasm and the nucleus, so it cannot be the liquid part of the nucleus. So our answer for question 1 is B. Alright, so question 2. A bacterial cell differs from eukaryotic cell by having no. So look at this question very well, and you have to see that the bacterial cell comes before the eukaryotic cell. So that means when we are trying to answer this question, we have to make sure that it has to be related to the bacterial cell, right? So let's look at our first option, nuclear material. Second option, cell membrane. Third option, cell wall. Fourth option, nuclear membrane. So you can see, by glancing at this, you can see that the answer cannot be the cell membrane, it cannot be the cell wall, right? Because both of these cells have both of these, right? So we have to now look between the nuclear material and the nuclear membrane. The funny thing is, both of them they contain nuclear material. Just that if you look at a prokaryote cell and a eukaryotic cell, the major difference is one has the presence of a nucleus, the other one is missing a nucleus. So now, since there's no nucleus, the nuclear material will be scattered in the cytoplasm of the bacterial cell. So therefore, the answer will be nuclear membrane. So question 3. A typical plant cell is mainly distinguished from an animal cell by the possession of what? So now we are looking at what a plant cell has that an animal cell doesn't have. So when you're going through this, you're just comparing plant cell and animal cell. So we are going to be looking for what a plant cell has alone that an animal cell does not have. So if you look at it, the right answer will be chloroplast and cell wall, because a typical plant cell contains a chloroplast, which it uses to make food, and it contains a cell wall, which provides support to its structure. So it's chloroplast and nucleus. An animal cell has the nucleus, so this cannot be the answer. Cell wall and cytoplasm. An animal cell also has a cytoplasm. If you look at cell wall and mitochondrion, an animal cell possesses something in the rest of the other option. But in B, chloroplast and cell wall, an animal cell does not possess any of them. All right, so let's go to question 4. All hereditary characters in a cell are passed on from parent cell to daughter cell through the process of implantation. What is implantation? Implantation is simply when the ovum gets implanted into the wall of the uterus. So this cannot be the answer of what we are talking about, because it doesn't even cover all we are talking about, right? Meiosis. Now, we have meiosis, we have fertilization, and we have mitosis. Fertilization here is talking about when the male gametes combines or unites with the female gamete, right? And this is not talking strictly about transferring of hereditary character, because even without this happening, without fertilization happening, hereditary characters are transferred from one parent to another, and that's why we have asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So the answer to this question has to be mitosis, because even meiosis is just talking about the variety that develops from fertilization or from sexual reproduction. But when we are talking about passing of genes down from parent cell to daughter cell, the main focus here is mitosis, because it's in mitosis that the cells are duplicated, right, and divided to form the parent cell and the daughter cell. So the correct answer to this is D, mitosis. So we have question 5 here. All the following organelles have membranes except the nucleus. Definitely has a membrane. Remember, it has the nuclear membrane, right? Nuclear membrane. The vacuole also has a membrane. The cell membrane, as the name says, is surrounded by what? A membrane. So we can see that the cell wall is the only one without a membrane, and that's why the cell wall is not really characterized as, or not called, an organelle, because it actually exists outside the cell membrane. It's not bounded by a membrane. So the answer to this is the cell wall. So now, what is the difference between the animal cell and the plant cell? As I've said previously, you have to pay attention to how the question is asked. What animal cells are different from plant cell, because animal cell have what? So we have to look at something that animal cell will have that a plant cell does not have. For example, chloroplast. Yes, plant cell has chloroplast, but animal cell doesn't. But now the question is, what does animal cell possess that we cannot see in a plant cell? And the answer to this will be centrioles, because centrioles is found in animal cells but cannot be found in plant cells. All right, so let's go to question 7. Carbohydrates are stored in the animal cell in the form of what? So we know that when our body contains excess glucose, it has to be stored. So now we are being asked, what form is it stored in? So is it stored as starch? Is it stored as plastic? Is it stored as maltose? Is it stored as glycogen? So we know that in plants, excess glucose is stored as what? Is stored as starch. So starch is not our answer to this question. We have maltose. Maltose is a disaccharide, and it's not talking about how carbohydrate is stored in the animal cell. Plastids are found in plants also, and we are talking about animal cells. So glycogen is our answer. So when we have excess glucose, our liver cell gets to absorb this glucose into themselves, and they bind them together using a glucosidic bond, which forms glycogen, which is an insoluble form, so it doesn't easily go back into the blood, right? So this is how our body stores carbohydrates. Our next question is asking us about cells that utilize a lot of energy are characterized by the presence of what? A large number of what organelle? So if a cell uses a lot of energy, that means it must contain an organelle that has to do with providing energy, right? So if we look at this, if we look at through the option we have ribosomes. We know the function of ribosomes. Ribosomes is for protein synthesis. We look at vacuoles. We know the function of vacuoles. Vacuoles are mainly to store food. We have endoplasmic reticulum, and we know what they are. They transport proteins around organelles in the cell. So our answer here is mitochondria, because we know we call the mitochondria the what? the powerhouse of the cell, because this is where energy is manufactured. So our answer will be mitochondria. All right, so the DNA in eukaryotic cell is contained in where? So if we look through this, we are very familiar with the DNA. The DNA means the deoxyribose nucleic acid, right? So the DNA is always found in the nucleus of a cell. That's where it is primarily located in the nucleus of the cell. And that's why we call the nucleus of the cell the brain of the cell, because it's from here that it goes about providing the cell with whatever it needs. So the DNA is like the master plan of a building, right? So the DNA is contained in the cell. Question 10. In which of the following is a cellulose cell wall present? In which of the following is the cellulose cell wall present? Well, so when we are talking about cellulose cell wall, we are talking about a plant cell, right? We know that an amoeba is not a plant cell, it's an animal cell. It's under the kingdom Prototoxis, right? Then we have the mammalian white blood corpuscle, and we know this is also an animal cell. Therefore, it cannot possess a cellulose cell wall. It does not even contain a cell wall, talk less of a cellulose cell wall. We have paramecium lipids and proteins, which are what? Also not the answer. These are what lines up the cell membrane itself. So we can see that there's only one answer that agrees with what we are talking about, which is the spirogyra. So the spirogyra is a plant cell, and it contains a cellulose cell wall. All right, so question 11. In which of the following part of the cell is the chromosome found? And we know that the chromosome is just the organized form of the DNA. And if the DNA is found in the nucleus, therefore the chromosome itself will also be found where? Will also be found in the nucleus. Question 12. So first of all, what shape are we seeing here? Or what cell are we looking at? We are looking at a plant cell. In which of the labeled parts would molecules of water and carbon dioxide combine to form sugar? From this, we can see our cell wall, right? We can see our cell membrane here. Number 3 is pointing at the chloroplast. 3 is pointing at the Golgi apparatus. The 4 pointing at the chloroplast. The 5 pointing at the mitochondria, or at the nucleus rather. The 6 pointing at the cell sap. And remember, the cell sap is where molecules of water and other sugar substances are kept in the cell. Then finally, we can see the mitochondria marked at 7. So in which of the labeled parts will molecules of water and carbon dioxide combine to form sugar? So purposely, they're asking us, where is food made? So we can see that the food will be made in the part labeled for IV in the chloroplast, because this is where energy is trapped. When energy is trapped and everything, it makes use of this energy to split water molecules and combine with carbon dioxide to make food. Then this is now transported to the cell sap where it is stored, and from there it also moves to other parts of the body. So the answer to this question is IV, question 4B. It definitely cannot be one, the cell wall, right? Because it doesn't even take part in the process of photosynthesis. It cannot be the cell membrane also. So even by elimination, you can see how you can come about your answer. Number 3 is pointing at what? At the Golgi apparatus, and we know that the Golgi apparatus is just to transport material out of the cell. So by the means of elimination, you can also come about getting your answer. Question 13 is asking, in which of the part of the plant tissues are guard cells located? So where would guard cells be located? First of all, I'm going to ask you, what are the function, or what is the function of the guard cell? What are the functions of the guard cells? We know that the function of the guard cell is to prevent water loss, and it also allows for the exchange of gases between the plant cell and the environment. Therefore, it has to be at the outer layer of the plant. So if we have different layers, right? And this is the outermost layer, because this is the layer which interacts with the environment. The guard cells have to be what? Located in this area. So therefore, when we look through this, vascular bundles are talking about transport. The mesophyll are below the epidermis, also as the meristem. So the answer to this question will be the epidermis, because it's the outermost layer, and that's where the guard cells are located in order to control the movement of water molecules outside and inside a plant cell. So most of the energy in the cell is produced where? We've already said that the mitochondrion is what? Is the powerhouse of the cell. Therefore, it's going to do what? It's going to provide the most energy the cell requires to perform its daily functions, because it's the powerhouse of the cell. That is where most of the energy is produced from. So the answer to this question is the mitochondrion. Question 15. Which of the group of structures listed below contain chloroplast? We know the function of chloroplast, which is with the help of chloroplast that plants are able to trap sun energy. So it converts light energy or solar energy into what? Chemical energy, with the help of what? With the help of the chlorophyll, which are contained in the chloroplast. So looking at this structure, where do we think that chloroplast will be found? So if you look at option D, 1, 2, and 3. 1, that's the first layer. 2 and 3. This is not the answer, because the chloroplast cannot just be located in these 3 layers, right? So we have so our answer to this question will be B. 3, 8, and 9. So in these layers, we can see where our chloroplasts are what? Are contained. And this is where they trap the sunlight energy in which they use to make their food. So we are going to go to the next question. So one of the differences between plant and animal cell is that in plant cell, so we are going to select, we are looking at the differences between plant and animal cell, but now we are going to pay more attention that's what a plant cell contains. So yeah, they told us cell wall is made of cellulose, but animal cell wall is made of chitin. So is this correct? We know that animal cell doesn't have a cell wall, so this cannot be what? This cannot be correct. Animal cell doesn't have a what? Cell wall, so this is not correct. Cells have less distinct outline. Plant cells, so we know that plant cells have a more definite outline because of the presence of what? Because of the presence of cell wall. So this cannot be correct also. Then carbohydrates are stored as starch but as glycogen in animal. This is our correct answer, because we know that in plant cells, excess carbohydrates, which are glucose, are stored as what? As starch. And that's when we want to test for photosynthesis, we are testing for starch, right? But in animals, it's stored as what? Glycogen. So our right answer to this is question C. Is option C rather. So we are looking at a plant cell here, and this plant cell is the spirogyra. We are asked, where is the pyrenoid located? So it's simple. The pyrenoid is located where? It's located in the chloroplast. So when you can locate the chloroplast, you know where the pyrenoid is, because it's always located in the chloroplast. So the answer to this will be IVC. Question 18. Spirogyra is regarded as a multicellular plant because remember that the spirogyra, though it's a plant cell, exists in what? In filament. We have forms in which cells exist. They can exist in a colony, they can exist in a filament. So in this case, spirogyra exists in what? In a filament. So it has cylindrical cells that are linked what? End to end. I think I have a picture of the spirogyra. So let's look at it. Okay, not this. All right, look at it. So this is one spirogyra. What? Look at it. This is a single cell, right? You can see it's linked to another cell. So they are in a cylindrical form linked with what? With other cells. So the answer to this will be C, because they are cylindrical cells linked end to end. Question 19. The cell as the basic unit of life will consist of what? So it has to consist of the protoplasm. And what is the protoplasm? That will be the cytoplasm and the nucleus. The cytoplasm and the nucleus. The cytoplasm and the nucleus. Question 20. The cell is a functional unit of living organism because. So why is the cell a functional unit of living organism? It's because multicellular organisms are made up of what? Cells. That's why it's a functional and structural unit of living organisms. If they were not made up of cells, therefore it will not be. So the cell is the functional unit of living organism because multicellular organisms are made up of cells. So the cells are basically the building block for what? Multicellular organisms. So what does the cell membrane consist of? Two substances make up the cell membrane: the lipids and proteins. So the lipids and proteins are what makes up the what? Cell membrane. These are the two organic material that make up the cell membrane: the lipids and the proteins. So it's not water and sugar, not vitamins and protein, not carbohydrate and lipids. It's lipids and protein that makes up the cell membrane. So the cytoplasm of the cell is considered a very important component because so why is the cytoplasm of the cell considered very important? Is it because it suspends all cell organelles, it regulates the amount of energy in the cell, is the outermost part of the cell, is solely responsible for the cell division? If you go through all the options, you can see that it's not responsible for cell division. So D is not our answer. It's also not the outermost part of the cell because we still have the cell membrane and the cell wall. Therefore, it's not the outermost part of the cell. And it doesn't regulate the amount of energy in the cell. That's not its primary function. So it's because it suspends all the cell organelles that are located within the within the cell. So the function of the cytoplasm is to suspend all the cell organelles in it. So this will be our correct answer to question 22. So this diagram represents what? First of all, we can see that this is a cell, right? I've shown you an image on this. This is a cell, but it's not just containing one cell, because we can see the ends of this cell. Look at the ends. It's linked to what? It's linked to another cell. So this has to be a filament. We know that cell can exist in different forms, right? So this cell in particular is existing as a filament. So C will be the correct answer for this question. So the first scientist to describe cell was who? Was Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke was the first scientist. He was an English scientist in the year 1665 who did what? Who discovered, or who was able to describe cell when he used a primitive microscope to observe a cork cell, or a slice of cork, right? Question 25. The folded portion of mitochondrion is called a cristae. So when you check it, we know that the mitochondrion has an inner part called the matrix. This matrix is inside the what? Is inside the cristae. So it's the inner part of the mitochondria. So the cristae is the folded portion of the mitochondrion, right? So don't forget this. When you come across this, the cristae is the folded portion of the mitochondria. So where's the hereditary material of a living organism located? Is it located in the protein wall? If it's located in the protein wall, therefore animal cells will not have hereditary material. What about the lysosome? No, it's not. We know that the lysosome is a very beautiful organ, but it's containing what? It just contains enzymes. The cytoplasm contains all the organelles, right? But it's not specific on whether it contains the hereditary material. So the answer would be the nucleus, because the DNA is the hereditary material of the cell, and that is contained in the nucleus. So we're looking at the hydra. So it has two body layers, which are called what? Which are called ectoderm and endoderm. So we can see that the hydra is made up of two layers. The endoderm is the inner layer, while the ectoderm is the outer layer. The living material of the cell consists of the living material of the cell. Now, this is another name for protoplasm, because the protoplasm is dealing with the inner material of the cell. So the inner material, the living material of the cell will be consists of the protoplasm. One name is the protoplasm, which consists of the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the answer to question 28 will be B, because it contains the nucleus and the cytoplasm. These are the living material of the cell. So what's the major function of the cell membrane? What's the major function of the cell membrane? So aside the fact that it permits entry and exits of materials that are going through the cell, right? It has another major function, and you can see that was not even included. Exit and entry of material was not included in our options here. So it doesn't synthesize protein. That's the function of the ribosome. It doesn't break down one out organelles. That's the function of the lysosome. So for this, synthesis of protein is function of what? The ribosome. While breaking down of worn out organelles is a function of the lysosome. And what site of photosynthesis? We are talking about the chloroplast here. So our answer is it delimits the cytoplasm. So our answer to this question is A. It delimits the cytoplasm. It tells the cytoplasm this is where you can cover, this is where you can't go beyond there. So it's just telling us about the limits or the boundaries it has given to the cytoplasm. Question 13. The network of double membrane that conveys material through the cytoplasm. Now, we have to pay attention to this question. It's talking about the fact that it's conveying material. It's conveying material, conveys, right? Conveys material through the cytoplasm, not outside. So the function of this will be what? The endoplasmic what? Reticulum. We know what the plasma membrane is. The plasma membrane is another name for the cell membrane. Its function is permitting entry and exit of substances into the cell. It also delimits the cytoplasm. The nuclear membrane is the membrane covering of the nucleus. The mitochondria is the powerhouse, right? This is the powerhouse. So you can see that based on this, our answer is A, endoplasmic reticulum, which conveys material to the cytoplasm. All right, the network. Okay, so this question just happened to repeat itself. So the answer to this question is, as we've said, is the endoplasmic reticulum. So once you see this, you know what your answer is. The nucleus controls the activities of the cell because it sends out nervous impulses to ensure the functioning of the cytoplasm. It doesn't. We know that the nucleus does not have the ability to do this, though we know how powerful the nucleus is, and it does not have the function to do what? To send nerve impulses. It doesn't have the function to send nerve impulses. Uses DNA to synthesize enzymes which are using. So yes, this is a function of the nucleus because it actually uses DNA to synthesize proteins, and these proteins can be enzymes because enzymes are what? Biological proteins. But that is not what makes it control the activity of the cell. So this is not correct. Then synthesizes hormones. Yeah, the brain plays a part in this. It doesn't synthesize hormones itself, but it sends information on how to go about this. So this is not an answer. It's like a brain in the cell. So it controls activities of the cell because it's like the brain in the cell. And how does it perform this? It performs this through the DNA that has already been encoded in the nucleus, which is already embedded in the nucleus. So the answer to this question is C. And you can see why the other ones, even though some of them might seem like the answer, is not the answer. All right, let's look at question 33. The organelle involved in the transport of substances within a cell is within. So we have to look at the keywords to this. Within a cell, right? So transport of substances within a cell. So the answer to this is still what? The endoplasmic reticulum. So you have to check what's the difference between the function of the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi body. So when you get to check this and compare this, you will be able to see why the endoplasmic reticulum would be the answer to this question and not the Golgi body. The Golgi body is responsible for the transport of what? Of material. So packaging, transport of material outside the cell. So that's the major differences between the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi body. So let's look at question 34. So which organelles in the cell are referred to as the suicidal bags? So we have the lysosome, mitochondria, nuclei, ribosomes. We know the function of most of this. Ribosomes, protein synthesis, right? Nuclei, this is the plural for nucleus. So we know that it controls cell activities. What about the mitochondria? We call it the powerhouse of the cell. So by this name, we know its function, energy production. Then finally, what do we have? The lysosome. So the lysosome contains what? They contain, let me use a different color for this. So for the lysosome contains digestive enzymes, and this is what allows it to act as what? To act as suicidal bags in the cell. So not only can it destroy worn out tissues, even foreign toxins that come into the cell, when they are encountered by the lysosome, they can be destroyed by it. So we call them the suicidal bags of the cell. 35, we have another diagram. This is a plant cell, right? So first of all, you have to recognize what cell this is. So we can see that it's a plant cell. So the oxygen gas formed in the cell diffuses out of the cytoplasm in the S spaces through the part called. So this question, you're looking at what? Okay, how do oxygen gas formed in the cell diffuse out of the cytoplasm into the S spaces? So we know the cytoplasm. So now you are looking at, from the question, you can say that the answer can be only two things, either the cell wall or what? Or the cell membrane. So those are the answers that we are focusing on. So anything outside these two, so we can say option 3, pointing at pointing at probably the ribosomes, and we can see the option 4, pointing at the chloroplast. It can't be any of them. It has to be the what? The cell wall or what? Or the cell membrane. So the answer to this would be the cell membrane, which is numbered which is 2. So A will be our answer to this. So we are in this. First of all, we have to locate, or we have to name this. This is a plant cell, right? Not just a plant cell. This is a spirogyra filament. So if you know the structure of a spirogyra filament, you'll be able to proceed with this question. So we can see label 1 here, and we can see label 2 here, so you are not confused. Label 1, the part labeled label 1 in the diagram is the what? We can see nucleus, we can see cytoplasm, we can see chlorophyll, we can see chloroplast. So the answer of this is what? Is the chloroplast. We can see the nucleus here. Let me use another color for this. We can see the nucleus here, and we can see this is not the nucleus, right? This is not the nucleus. Then where's the cytoplasm? We know the cytoplasm is just around this, right? So this is the chloroplast. The chloroplasts are in a strand, and that is our answer to this question, chloroplast. While the chlorophyll are contained in what? In the chloroplast. So how do plant cells store food? Excess glucose stored as what? Starch. In animal, they are stored as what? Glycogen. Animal. But we are talking about plants now. So in plant cells, most food are stored as starch. So what does the presence of large number of mitochondria in the cell indicate? Is it that it has little cytoplasmic content? That's why we have large numbers of mitochondria? No, that's false. Is it that the respiration is poor or just contains only hormones? No, that cannot be the answer. Is it that the cell is dormant? No, it shows that the cell is very active. It shows that the cell requires a lot of energy to function. So anytime you see the presence of large members of mitochondria in the cell, it indicates that that cell is very active. It indicates that the cell is what? Is active, is functional, and it requires a lot of energy. So this will be the right answer to this question. I've said this quite a number of times, but I will say it again. So the protoplasm of a living cell is made up of what and what? So it's made up of the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Do not forget that it is made up of the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So who is the scientist who discovered the cell while examining a thin slice of cork under the microscope? So the answer to that is the English scientist Robert Hooke, who did so in 1665. Question 41, the answer is Robert Hooke, who discovered the honeycomb structure of the cell. So he discovered this while looking at 18 slides of cork. So Robert Hooke is the answer to this question. So what is the site for the production of ATP in a cell? What is the site of the production of ATP in a cell? So the site of production of ATP in a cell is the mitochondrion. Remember that the mitochondrion is the powerhouse of the cell. And why it's called the powerhouse of the cell is that it does what? It produces ATP, which is the major source of energy in a cell. So what is the structure in the cell that controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell? So the answer to that will be the cytoplasmic membrane. So all of this is, look at, they did not tell you, oh, it's the plasma membrane. They did not use plasma membrane. They also did not use cell membrane. But the cytoplasmic membrane is also another name for this. So all of these are the names for what? The cell membrane. So either you call it the cytoplasmic membrane, the plasma membrane, or the cell membrane. All of these are talking about the same thing. So the function of the cell membrane is what? Is to control what comes in and what goes out of the cell. The cell membrane, as what we call, is selectively permeable, unlike the cell wall, which is permeable. Anything can pass through. The cell membrane is not so. It is selective permeable, and that's how it controls what comes in and leaves the cell. So we can see the structure of a cell. So is this an animal cell or a plant cell? First question, right? So when you decide what this is, then you go ahead to look at the structure. So we're asked what is the structure labeled V? What's the structure labeled V? So you can already take out some options. You can see that one is not part of it, right? So what is the structure labeled V? One thing you can see for sure is that V is located very close to what? Very close to the nucleus, right? And when you check this, you can see it's not the nucleus itself. So this cannot be the answer. I think the wisest way to go about answering questions like this is the fact that you can go by elimination, because at times the diagrams are not completely clear. So definitely we can see nucleus is not the answer. We can also see that the mitochondrion is not the answer, because look at the mitochondrion here, right? This is the mitochondrion. Okay, let me use another color for nucleus. For the nucleus, look at the nucleus here. Then we have centriole. We know the centriole is always located in the nucleus. So the answer to this question will be what? Will be Golgi apparatus. So at times, Golgi apparatus and endoplasmic reticulum, they can be confusing in an image. But in this, you can see they've helped us out where we don't have to check between the endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. But in case of next time, or if a question like that should be asked, you can always see that the endoplasmic reticulum, not only do they have ribosomes on them, they are more like in a H shape, unlike the Golgi apparatus, who are just single layer but are also stacked close to each other. So I hope this is helpful in case you see a question where both Golgi apparatus and endoplasmic reticulum are parts of the options. All right, let's look at this next one. The structure labeled 5 is what? So as you can see, this is also a very difficult one to see because of the image. But you can also tell that it's not the cell wall, because the cell wall is labeled 1. Cell wall is labeled 1. So it cannot be the cell wall. It's not the cell wall. It's not the mitochondrion. The mitochondrion is labeled 8, so it's not the mitochondrion. Is it the nucleus? So we have nucleus and endoplasmic reticulum next. You can see this is really difficult, right? So because the image is not clear enough. So it all depends on the line. If the line stops at this structure here, let me use yellow for this. If it stops here, if the line stops here, it's going to be what? It's going to be the nucleus. But if it stops here, let me use blue for this. If it stops here, it's going to be what? The endoplasmic reticulum. But I can see that this line reaches this, so the answer will be nucleus. All right, so we're looking at the structure of the cell membrane. Remember, we've already stated that the cell membrane is made up of lipids and what? Lipids and proteins. So anything that does not have to do with lipids and protein in this would what? Will be out. So it can, but we can see that in all the options, we can see, okay, a double layer and the double protein layer. So this is a double layer of lipid and a double, so it cannot be this, right? Then a protein layer with 2 inner lipid layers, right? So you can see that everything contains both lipids and proteins. But we know that it's going to contain what? A middle bilayer of what? Protein with a lipid on either surface. So a lipid is on either surface while the protein is central to this, right? So the answer to this question is B. Anytime you come and see this, the answer is B, because the lipid is on the outer part of what? Of the protein bilayer. The protein is the central part of the cell membrane. So you can check your textbook to verify this, but this is the right answer to this. But 7. The structure that produces ATP is labeled. First of all, you're asking yourself, what is the structure that produces ATP? The structure that produces ATP is the what? Is the mitochondrion. And where is the mitochondrion located? You can see the answer is VI. This is pointing at the mitochondrion. So what's the structure that produces energy required by the cell? That's also the what? That's also the mitochondrion. So we can see C is our answer. The Roman figure 2 is pointing at what? Is pointing at the mitochondrion. So our answer to this question is C. So the unit contained in the cell structure responsible for changing in the form and shape of that is called what? It's not the gene. The gene has to do with hereditary material. We know what the ribosome is for. The ribosome, gene is the hereditary material of the cell. What about the ribosome? Ribosome is for protein what? Synthesis. Mitochondria is what? Has to do with energy. So the answer to this is the cytoskeleton. We know that all of this can play a role in what? In how the structure is being changed. But the major function that changes this is what? Is the cytoskeleton. So the cytoskeleton is the answer to this question. So what is the function of the part labeled 2? So you can see this is the part labeled 2. And what is its function? What is it doing? You can see that it's suspending. This is the nucleus. So the nucleus is this structure here. This is the nucleus. And we can see that this part is attached to the walls of the cell, and it's going to all direction, holding the nucleus in the center of the cell. So the right answer is it suspends the nucleus. So we are looking at which organelle can destroy other organelles. So that means it must have digestive enzymes, and we know that out of these 4 options, the only one that has digestive enzymes will be what? The lysosome. Power, this is for energy, right? This for protein synthesis. This has to do with what? Cell division. So the answer to this is what? Is a lysosome. Which of the following cell organelle is the site for the production of ATP? So we know that it's the mitochondrion, because we call it the power energy. We call it the what? The powerhouse of the cell. So the mitochondrion is the site for the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, if you don't know what ATP is. All right. So which of the following cell types has the least number of mitochondria? Remember that the presence of mitochondria is telling us that a particular cell is very active. So you expect that the cardiac cells of the heart will do what? Will contain a large number of mitochondria because of how active it is. Your heart is always beating, right? And you can check that by your what? By your pulse. What about the muscle cell of the diaphragm? Remember, diaphragm is responsible or is directly related with respiration. And you know that if I tell you to hold your breath for 5 seconds now, that can be trouble for you. Some of you will always start turning blue, like literally blue. So that cannot be the answer. Then we have the muscle cells of the bladder. The muscle cells of the bladder doesn't play an active role like the cardiac cells of the heart and the muscle cells of the diaphragm. But also it has its own function as it stretches to contain urine that are being transferred there from the kidney until they are expelled out of the body. Let's look at the cells of the conified layer. Where can we find this conified layer? This conified layer is located in our skin. And it's a very protective, and it serves as a protective barrier. So if you look at it, it doesn't really play an active role. In fact, most of its layers, most of the cells there are dead skins with the keratin proteins. So the answer to this question has to be C, which is the cells of the conified layer. So our next question is asking us which of the following cells are not regarded as specialized. Remember, as multi-organism becomes more complex, cells need to be specialized so that it can perform its function efficiently and effectively. So which of these cells are not recognized or are not regarded as specialized cells? So we can see the root tip cells, and we know that the root tip cells are already specialized. If you look at the structure of this, you can see how it has been adapted for its function, which is what? Which is water absorption. So we know the root cell is for absorption of water. And it has been modified for this function. Look at the muscle cells. The muscle cells will contain what we call actin and myosin. And this helps it to do what? To contract and to expand. So it also is specialized. What about the sperm cells? Specialized for what? For reproduction. So the answer to this question has to be the somatic cells, which are just what? Which are just general cells in the body. So we are asked the question again, which of the following cell is a specialized cell? So we are talking about the same thing, right? Specialized cells are found in multicellular organisms because As organisms are becoming more complex, they have to perform their function more efficiently. So Plasmodium, first of all, is not even a cell, it's an organism, right? So Plasmodium is a whole organism, so this cannot be the answer. We have the amoeba, which is also a whole organism. So amoeba and Plasmodiums are what? They are organisms. While the meristematic cell is more of a general cell, so it's not specialized in any way. So the answer to this is the guard cell. And we know the guard cell is closely related to the stomata. So the guard cell is actually what controls how a cell opens and closes, which permits gas exchange and loss of water. So the guard cell is the specialized cell amongst this. The answer to this has to be B. So question 56. Which of the following characteristics differentiate a palisade cell from a liver cell? So you have to ask yourself, what is a palisade cell? A palisade cell is a plant cell. What is a liver cell? A liver cell is an animal cell. So from that differentiation, you can tell. Now, which of them comes first? The plant cell comes first. So therefore, you are looking at what the plant cell possesses. And that will be what? Cell wall and what? Chloroplast. So which of the following is the similarity between a typical animal cell and a plant cell? We are looking at what an animal cell has and a plant cell also what? Also contains. So it has to be, it's not a cell wall because an animal cell doesn't have a cell wall. Centrally placed nucleus is not so for all cells. Chlorophyll, we know that's contained only in a plant cell, and cell membrane is contained both in animal cell and plant cell. So D is going to be our answer to question 57. Question 58. Which of the following is not a cell organelle? Which of the following is not a cell organelle? You can see that we are familiar with the rest. Fat droplets is not an organelle. 59. Which of the following is not correct about the living cell? Which of the following is not correct about the living cell? So there's no life apart from the life in cells, which is correct. So this is correct. The basic unit of a living organism is the cell, which is also correct. All cells in organisms are the same. All the cells in organisms are the same, which is not correct. So the answer to this is what? B. Question 60. Which of the following is not likely to be found in the cell of a ripe tomato fruit? So you can say that this is a technical question, and you have to think to know this. So the answer to this has to be chlorophyll, because what is the color of a ripe tomato fruit? Is it going to be what? Red or what? Or probably orange. There's no green in it again. And remember, the chlorophyll is what gives, is the pigments that give plants their green color. So which of the following is not present in the nucleus of a cell? Which of the following is not present? Now, we're not just talking about the cell, but we are talking about the nucleus in the cell. So the answer to this will be the mitochondria, because we know the mitochondrion is located in the cytoplasm and not inside the nucleus. Which of the following is not true of the nucleus of a living cell? Which of the following is not true of the nucleus of a living cell? So we are looking at the incorrect thing. So it contains what? So what does a nucleus contain? It contains chromosomes, correct? Contains nucleus, correct? Contains chromatids. So the answer is what? Contains chromosomes. So the answer will be chromatids, because chromatids are only seen during what? During sexual reproduction, when it's time for it, during mitosis, when it's time for it to divide. That's the only time chromatids appear. The nucleoplasm is just like the cytoplasm of the nucleus. Do you understand that? 63. Which of the following organelles are likely to be present in cells that are actively what? Respiring and photosynthesizing. So we know the major organelle for photosynthesis is what? Chloroplast. And the major organelle, so that's chloroplast, and the major organelle for respiration is what? Mitochondria. So the answer to this question will be what? C. Question 64. Which of the following organelles help to remove excess water from cells? We can see that it's the contractile vacuole. The contractile vacuole is a specialized cell that allows smaller organisms to do what? To expel water out of it. Which of the following organelle is common to both plant and animal cell? So which one is both common to plant and animal cell? The answer to this is the cell membrane, because the cell membrane can be found in both what? Plant cells and animal cells. Which of the following organelles is found only in plant cells? Found only in plant cells. The answer to this is plastids, because ribosomes, mitochondria, and lysosomes can be seen both in plant cells and in animal cells. Which of the following part of a cell is not an organelle? The answer to this is cell wall. We know that the others are what? The others are organelles because they are located within the cell membrane. They are bounded by a membrane. Question 68. Which of the following statements about ribosome is not correct? Ribosome contains a large amount of ribonucleic acid, RNA. It releases enzymes for the digestion of bacteria, are responsible for photosynthesis and attachment. So the answer to this is B, because we know that what releases enzymes for digestion of bacteria is what? Is the lysosome, not a ribosome. Ribosome contains a large amount of RNA. It is responsible for photosynthesis and it is attached to endoplasmic reticulum. 69. Which of the following structures controls the activity of the cell? So we know that the answer is the nucleus, because the nucleus acts as the brain of the cell, which controls all the activities that goes on within the cell. Question 70. Which of the following structures differentiates an animal cell from a plant cell? So we can see that both an animal cell and a plant cell contains cell membrane, ribosome, and mitochondria. It's only the chloroplast that you can use to differentiate between what? Animal cell and plant cell. Question 71. Which of the following structures will not be found in the nucleus of a cell? Now we are paying attention to the nucleus of the cell. We are not concerned about the whole cytoplasm. So which of this will not be found? We know that the centriole will definitely be found in the nucleus of a cell. Also, the nucleolus is also found in the nucleus of the cell. And finally, the DNA is found in the nucleus of the cell. So the answer to this question has to be the lysosome. So question 72. Which of the following substances is contained in chloroplast? Which of the following substances is contained in chloroplast? So we have starch, we have glycogen, we have dextrin, and we have sugar. So the answer to this question would be starch, because after the chloroplast makes food, sugar, it converts it to what? It converts it to starch. So therefore, glycogen is the storage form of carbohydrate in animals. Sugar is just general. So the answer to this will be A, starch. Question 73. Which of this organelle is common to both plant and animal cell? Which is common to both plant and animal cell? We can see the chloroplast is common to only plant cells, centrioles to only animal cells, pyrenoid to plant cells. So the answer to this question is the mitochondria, because the mitochondrion can be both seen in the plant cell and an animal cell. Remember that this pyrenoid is located within the chloroplast, so it can be found only in what? Only in plant cells. So which part of a plant cell contains cellulose? Which part of a plant cell contains cellulose? So the part of a plant cell that contains cellulose is the cell wall. So cellulose is what gives the cell wall the strength it needs to give the shape of a plant cell, to make a plant cell, to give a definite outline to the shape of a plant cell. So which two structures are present in a palisade cell but not in a liver cell? Remember, you have to locate, or you have to recognize, what a palisade cell is and what a liver cell is. A palisade cell is a plant cell, while a liver cell is an animal cell. So they're asking us for two structures that will be present in a plant cell but be absent in an animal cell. And the answer to this question will have to be the cell wall and the chloroplast, which is D. So this brings us to the end of cells.